Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 in my tutorial series, Making Your First Game. Let's jump into our recent project, our very first game. So what we're going to do today is create the sprite for your player, and then we're going to create your player object and move it into the room where the game will happen. So let's first go to our workspace here, and we're just going to clear it all. Right click in the background, Windows, close all. That's going to clear it. Then we'll, up at the top here, we can get out of room init, out of background grass, out of room game, and we're just uncluttered now. So go to your sprites, right click the sprite folder, create new sprite. And now that you have it in your asset browser, you can just name it S player. So this is going to be our sprite player. We'll go up to, for me it's 16 by 16 by default, but you might have 32 by 32. I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to resize it to 32 by 32. And then go ahead and click edit image right there. So when you're doing a player character, you're probably going to have it animating. And that just means you're going to have a few frames to it. So I'm just going to make a very basic player character here. Here's his head. Try to center it a little better. And here's his hair. I'm going to use this brush. Here. This looks like a photorealistic man. And there's his eyes and his little mouth. And now he'll have a color shirt. He's going to have a green, yellow. Let's do a yellow shirt. It's a little too wide. So what we're doing is just creating the player sprite. That will be your player, basically. Just going to give him some features here. And he's going to have some brown pants on. He's wearing yellow and brown is great. There we go. I like that brown. Some pants. And we're going to give him some black shoes. Oops. There we go. There we go. So now we've got our player character. But usually you'll want it to animate. So what you can do up here is right click your first frame up here at the top, copy, and you can paste it right here too. The quick way to do that is to highlight it, click it, hit Control C, that's going to copy, then Control V is going to paste it. But this is going to be a 4-frame animation, so we're going to have the first frame standing still. The second frame will be walking, so I'm just going to make his arms move like that. That looks good. This arm went backwards, so you can't see it. This leg will be a little bit forward, and I am by no means an artist, so any artistic advice I give you here, take with a grain of salt, because it means nothing. So there's your first walk frame, and he's taking a step here. You can use the buttons 1 and 2 to go frame to frame. If you hit 3, it will animate, and it's animating really fast. We'll fix that though. So frame 2, frame 3, and what we're going to do is copy frame 2, Control C, click frame 3, and then hit Control V, and it's going to paste after that frame. So now it looks like he's walking kinda, but I'm going to make this arm swing back in the 3rd frame, that look normal? Not really, eh? Yeah, okay. Close enough. And then we're going to give this arm a forward look. There we go. Now that is animation. And as goofy as that looks, that'll work. But what we'll do on the second and fourth frame here, we're going to make him move down a notch so it looks like he's bumping along. Actually, let's do it with the head. Down. You can highlight, use the S to go to your select tool, and go down. How does that look? That looks good. Good enough for me. So there's your player. We've drawn a 4-frame player. Now we're going to go back to the workspace, and you'll be able to preview it right here. You can hit the play button, and you can see he is just cruising along because he's moving at 30 frames per second, which is ridiculous because he's only 4 frames long. So we're going to change this to 7. So now his walk speed looks a lot better. And there's your player character. So we can exit out of that. We've got him moving at a nice gingerly pace. And we're going to create your first object now. Let's go to your object folder here, right click and create, and find object on that list. So now we've got our first object here. And the first thing you'll see is the name. We're going to change that to O, player, denoting that it is an object. The sprite, we've just drawn the player sprite, so what we could do is click here and find the sprite, but what I usually do is just drag it over from my asset browser and pop it right there. So it's got a collision mask. That would be the hitbox where it will interact with other objects. Setting it as the same as the sprite is usually a good idea until you begin to make a sprite that changes, make an object that changes sprites, because then sometimes you get stuck in the wall. And in that case, I usually set the collision mask to a specific sprite, but we won't worry about that right now. Visible means the player can see it. Solid would be a stationary, a wall object. Uses physics, no. And persistent means that it will stay in the room even when you exit the room and come back. It will remain there, so that's not important. So the first thing we'll do is put it in the game now. We're going to open up our room over here on our asset browser. Go to room game. I'm going to move my room init up in the room game. Move that. Oh, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unclick A to Z, click custom order, and that's going to let me move my assets around where I want them. So I've got room init first because it's first, and room game, and that's just, it makes more sense to my brain. So now we're in our room game. We can look at our background, our beautiful background, or go to instances. So this is where we're going to put the objects in. So you can drag in our player. Look at that guy. He is happy to be alive. So we're putting him in there. I'm going to change the grid on here. Right now it's 32 by 32 grid. And that it's fine for most cases, but I'm going to change it to 8 by 8. Just gives you a little bit more freedom to snap objects down. Alternatively, you could hold Control, and I'll show you what it does up close, and it lets you move that object pixel by pixel to where you want to place it. But really, snapping to the grid is going to be just fine. So we're going to snap them right here. And now when we open our game, you're going to see the player in the room, and he's going to be animating. And that's what we had hoped for. It decides to load. There we go. So now we've got a player. We're halfway there. Now we've just got to make him do stuff. And that will be next episode. So next time you see me, we're going to be making him move, making walls to bump into, and coding the movement and the collisions. So it's a little bit more code heavy in the next one, but it's fairly simple stuff, and it's stuff you're going to use in most of the projects you do going forward. So if you watched all the way through, leave a like. If you got questions, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.